Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to today's video, which is my March TBR. I am incredibly excited about March, but once again, I have overcommitted myself. I have perhaps overextended my abilities to read all the books that I've decided to try to read in March, but that is really on brand for me. But like in February, I have a book club book, I have a read-along book, and I have a readathon. Only this time around, it's my readathon that I am co-hosting with Charlotte. So there are many books on this list, and I am excited about all of them and really want to tell you about what I plan to try at least to read in March. So we're going to do that in a second, but also, what are our thoughts about this setup? I decided to try filming standing up for a change because honestly, I spend so much of my time sitting down that I was just like, you know what? Give it a try. So this could fail miserably. Hopefully it doesn't. But we'll try this for the next couple of videos and see how it goes. Anywho, let's dive right in. So first things first, I want to talk about the book club book and then the read-along book. So the book club book is for the Found in Translation book club that I co-host with Noelle and Annie. For anyone who doesn't know what that book club is, we focus on translated literature from around the world. So March is actually our third pick, and this time around we're reading Strange Beasts of China by Yan Ji, which is translated from Chinese. I will be the first to say that this is not a book that I would have been drawn to on my own, because I do think there are some fantasy or sci-fi-ish elements within the book, but there are some things about it that are really fascinating to me and have piqued my interest. The main one being that the protagonist is a cryptozoologist who is trying to document these almost mythological beings, creatures, beasts as they were, that are from like Chinese fables. And so that kind of mythological element, that history of like Chinese culture and everything that I do feel like is going to be involved in this story, does really interest me. So while this is a book that I wouldn't necessarily have gravitated towards on my own, I am genuinely excited about it, and this is what this book club is all about, to be honest. It's about kind of pushing you beyond your comfort zone and reading books from points of views and, in this case, genres that you might not normally pick up. So it is definitely succeeding. This live show will be on Annie's channel this time around on the first Tuesday of, if we're in March, of April. I don't know why that couldn't click in my head. Anyway, I will put that information in the description box for you. The next book is for the Brontelong, so I'll be trying to read Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte, which is one of the few Bronte novels that I have not read yet, so I definitely want to prioritize this. I do think that I'm going to try to listen to it as an audiobook, but when I looked it up on Libby, there were two versions of it, both unabridged. One was 6 hours and one was 8 hours long. So in one case, the narrator talks very slowly, I would imagine. So that will be interesting to see how that goes. But I am really looking forward to this one. I read Anne Bronte's other novel, Tenant of Wildfell Hall, and this might be sacrilegious, but I actually think that I might enjoy Anne Bronte more than Charlotte, which is saying something because Jane Eyre has always been one of my favorite books of all time. So reading this book by Anne, which I believe is her debut, should be really interesting. It is not, from my understanding, gothic like Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights, but it's about a governess who takes a job with like an English family, like the family that's part of the gentry, to help support her own family. And so I think there will be a lot about sort of exploitation and English society and that sort of thing. And if it's anything like Tenant of Wildfell Hall, I imagine that there will be some sort of feminist angle to it as well. And now we're on to the Herstoryathon books that I am trying to read this month. I think I have 10 in total because I am trying for a full blackout of the bingo board with the 9 prompts and the group read. So like I said, overcommitted myself, have not necessarily set myself up for success here. However, it's all going to be fun. So in case you don't know what the Herstoryathon is, I will link in the cards and in the description section my announcement video, but it is essentially a Women's History Month themed read-along for the entire month of March, and I'm very excited about it. You get to read fiction and nonfiction as long as it's about real-life women from history, and that, as you know, is my cup of tea. So the first book that I want to talk about is definitely the group read, which is The Women's History of the Modern World by Rosalind Miles. And this is a book that is looking at a bunch of incredible women over the course of 200 years, basically from the French Revolution to the Me Too movement, and exploring the impact they've had on the feminist movement, on women's rights, and women gaining more power and autonomy when it comes to politics, economics, and social reform. And this is a sort of like survey book that I really enjoy because you always discover women that you didn't know about, and that usually makes me search for biographies or historical fiction about their lives. So it does tend to send me down this like historical research rabbit hole that I do enjoy. I've also read other books by Rosalind Miles, as I've said, although it has been many, many years, but all of those books have been fiction, so I am interested in seeing her approach to nonfiction. We haven't like set up, as of yet anyway, any sort of like real structure to the reading, so you can kind of read this at your own pace over the course of the month of March, and then we'll have a live show on my channel the first week of April. I don't remember the date, but it will be in the description box for you. Now we're gonna talk the 9 prompts. So as I said, I did pick 9 books for all 9 prompts in the Herstoryathon bingo card. However, I know that's not realistic. A good month for me is reading 8 books, and I think I have a dozen books that I'm trying to read during the month of March. So I have also tried to be very strategic, where I think almost every book that I've chosen could also cover at least one other prompt. So one way or another, I will have a blackout of this board. It might be the death of me, but it will happen. So the first prompt is different country, and for that prompt I decided to go with a book that is one of my anticipated releases for the year, and also a book that I have on pre-order as it pubs on March 15th, I think. But the book is Tsarina's Daughter by Ellen Alpsten. I absolutely loved Ellen Alpsten's other novel, Tsarina on Catherine I of Russia. It was one of my favorite books of 2021, so I was very excited about this because it's looking at Catherine I's daughter, Elizaveta Petrovna, I believe is how you would say her Russian name, and she is the daughter of Peter the Great and Catherine I. So I am very much looking forward to this. If it's anything like Ellen Alpsten's other book, there are going to be some salacious things going on. There's going to be lots of like Russian courtly intrigue, and from what I know about Tsarina Elizabeth, she is a force to be reckoned with. So I am here for it. As I said, I did pre-order the book, so it's not here yet. It's not getting here till like midway through the readathon, but that's fine because odds are I'm going to stop whatever I'm doing to read that book because that's how excited about it I am. And this is a book that potentially I could use for the pre-1800 prompt as well. So, you know, if I can't get to all the books, that's at least one course of action right there. The next prompt is non-titled woman or untitled woman, and the book that I chose for that is The Doctor's Blackwell by Janice P. Nomura, and this is a book that was actually an anticipated release for 2021, so I've had it for ages and just have not gotten around to it, and I believe that actually Shelly is trying to read this for the Herstoryathon as well. So I am incredibly excited about this book because many, many moons ago, and when I say many moons, I'm talking like elementary or middle school book report type moons ago, read a biography on Elizabeth Blackwell, one of the doctors Blackwell in this book. The other one is her sister. Elizabeth Blackwell was the first female doctor in the United States, and these two sisters end up opening the first hospital staffed entirely by women. And so this is going to be an exploration of their legacy and who they are as individuals. And that to me sounds fascinating. It also kind of connects to another book that I really enjoyed last year, No Man's Land, which was also about two doctors who opened a female staffed military hospital during World War I. So this is really a topic that I am interested in, and lucky for me, this could also be used for the Woman in Science category or prompt as well. The next book is for the local woman prompt, and I approached this by trying to find a book about a woman who lived in New York. And the book that I ended up settling on was A Well-Behaved Woman by Therese Ann Fowler. This book has been on my physical TBR for way too long, and I don't know why. But it does feel like the perfect time to pick this up because I am currently obsessed with the Gilded Age, and this happens to be a book that is about the figures that inspired the Russells from the Gilded Age. So this is a book about Alva Vanderbilt and her husband, William Vanderbilt, too, I would assume, who were New Yorkers and industrialists living in this Gilded Age of New York. And so because of how fascinated I have been by that TV show on HBO, I feel like I should just ride the wave. And this is a book that I could also use for the non-titled woman prompt if I didn't get to the Doctor's Blackwell. So there is that, but it is a really striking cover to me. I do have another book by Therese Ann Fowler that I have not gotten to yet either. I believe that one's about Zelda Fitzgerald. So at some point I'll get to it as long as I enjoy this one. But yeah, looking forward to it. Okay, so I'm realizing that I probably should have put a disclaimer at the top of this video that there is going to be a lot of Russia mixed into this TBR. I've already spoken about one book, but the next book is also Russian focused, and the book after that also Russian focused. So for the letters, diaries, essays, memoir prompt, I am going to tackle the diaries of Sophia Tolstoy, which is something that I started, as you can see by this little tiny tag in here, at the very start of 2021. I got like maybe 10 pages in and got distracted by everything else that I was trying to read, and also was like, well, why don't I read this and pair it with like a biography or something? And I just never got the time to actually be reading those books in tandem, and I really do think that would be the best way to get the most value out of both books. But as this says, On the label, it's the diaries of Sophia Tolstoy, Leo Tolstoy's wife, who is a fascinating individual to me, someone who I just am hungry to learn more about, and I'm just really excited. I would also say, on like a totally tangential note, it is the sort of obsessive compulsive way that Russian writers and women like Sophia Tolstoy journaled and kept diaries that has actually encouraged me to really pick up the practice. I don't do it every day, but I do it at least every couple of days, and I find it really, really nice to spend that time sort of processing what I've experienced during the day. So that'll be fun for me to be writing diary entries or journal entries while also reading Sophia Tolstoy's diaries. And because it is Sophia Tolstoy, I could use this for the woman you admire prompt as well. So I kind of sort of already spoiled the next book that I'm going to be talking about, but for the woman you admire, I picked up Sophia Tolstoy, a biography by Alexandra Popov. I have read other books by Alexandra Popov. The one that comes to mind is The Wives, which was a book that spoke about the women of sort of the Russian literary giants and their impacts on the lives and the works of their husbands. Sophia Tolstoy was included in that book as a chapter, and that was really when my love affair with her as an individual started. So this is a full-length biography on her. I'm very excited about it. I still think about The Wives all the time. It's obviously left an impression on me. And I do think, as I said, that this will be a nice pairing for the diary entries that I am reading. So what I'll try to do is kind of match up the diary entries to the section of the book that I am reading at that time. So I think this is the only book on this list that would not work for another prompt. I think. I'm pretty certain about that. Actually, no, I'm not certain about that at all. But let's move on. So for the underrepresented woman prompt, I decided to pick up Gentleman Jack by Angela Steidel, which is a biography on Anne Lister. It is a book that I got in my really massive birthday Christmas book haul that I will link for you if you're interested in book hauls and that sort of thing. Gentleman Jack, Anne Lister, is an individual from history that I don't know a ton about, but what little I know about her is fascinating. She was a Regency era landholder in England. She was a world traveler, and she also had female lovers. So this is an LGBTQ plus biography, and I am here for it. And to be honest, there's also like a TV show based on the biography that I want to watch, but I figured I should probably read the biography first, so that's what I'm going to do. But this is just really incredibly fascinating, so we'll see how it goes. I feel like what I have heard about Gentleman Jack, the biography, has been good. So here's hoping it is. Next, we're in pre-1800 woman, the category, the prompt, whatever you want to call it. And the book that I'm trying to read for this one is The Rebel Nun by Marge Charlier, which is this stunning book that I've had on my physical TBR for probably a year now, and it really fascinates me. I just have not gotten around to picking it up. So from what this says, it is based on the true story of Clotilde, the daughter of a 6th century king and his concubine, who leads a rebellion of nuns against the rising misogyny and patriarchy of the medieval church. She sounds like an absolute badass. I know nothing about her. The 6th century is well before sort of my quote-unquote expertise of European history begins, so yeah, I don't know what to expect from this. I really haven't heard anyone on BookTube or Book Talk or Bookstagram mention this book before. That doesn't deter me, but I am very, very curious about it. And this is a book that I could potentially use for the last prompt, which is a woman you've never heard of before, because before I picked up this book, I had never heard of Clotilde. So we'll see. As I said, if time is against me, Czarina's Daughter would also work for this prompt, so there is that, but I am hoping I get around to this one. For the Woman in Science prompt, I've picked up Radiant by Liz Heinecke, and this is a book that I'm pretty excited about because it's looking at radium in a different way than The Radium Girls by Kate Moore, which I really enjoyed. This is looking at the friendship between Marie Curie and this Art Nouveau dancer in France, and they formed this relationship because of the newest innovation, radium, and I'm just intrigued by this. Like, the art and the science kind of melding together between this friendship between these two women sounds extraordinary to me, but I also am really interested in kind of learning more about radium within like popular culture and society in the early 1900s, because before anyone knew that it was dangerous, like, it was used for everything. It was like a cure-all. It was basically a cure-all. The only thing I can think of similar would be like ginger ale or tea in my family. Basically, any ailment, any affliction, cure it with tea. Radium was put in everything. So I believe that this dancer, who I've never heard of before, which means that I could potentially use it for that prompt as well, was using radium for her sort of avant-garde dances. She's, I guess, what you would consider like a forefather or foremother of modern dance. And I'm just intrigued. It's also a really, really fascinating cover. But this was another book that I got in that same haul. So these are books that I am very eager to get to. And the last prompt is Woman You've Never Heard of Before. And the book I've decided to read for that is The Great Mrs. Elias by Barbara Chase Ribot. And this is an anticipated release for this year. This book just literally arrived at my house before I started filming. I am very excited about it. This is the story of, I think I read somewhere that Mrs. Elias was like the first Black woman to become like a millionaire, but she has this sort of dark past that she's not proud of. She moves to New York City and she ends up earning a fortune, which she splits across like 29 or 30 different banks and all of this stuff, and she gets that mansion that she's dreamed of. And then there's like this murder that occurs, and I think because of like a mistaken identity, she, I believe, is identified as the suspect. And so there's going to be a lot of scandal and intrigue here as well, but it's all based on a true story, which I had never heard of, so that's why this book works perfectly for this prompt. This is also a book that I could potentially use for local women because she lived in New York City. It's also a prompt that I could use for underrepresented women because this is about a BIPOC figure from history. So it could tick a lot of boxes for me, but I am genuinely stoked about this book. So yeah, those are the books that I am trying to read in March. I think, I'm pretty sure it's a dozen books, which, as I said, is really, really ambitious for me. A good reading month for me is generally 8 or 9 books. So already chances of getting to all of them are slim to none. I also think that not many of them are audiobooks, which probably wasn't good planning on my part, but I am genuinely excited about these books. So I'm hoping that excitement, that enthusiasm helps me to really power through a lot of them over the course of March. But yeah, that's what I'm planning to do in March. A whole lot of reading, not a lot else apparently, so we shall see. But I am very curious about what you plan to read for March. I know there is so much going on BookTube, like readathons popped off in March from what I have seen. So if you're participating in Herstoryathon, definitely let me know. Let me know what books you're reading for it. If you're participating in any other readathons, let me know that too. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!